What's going on, YouTube? RDAPdan here, Federal Prison Time Consulting. Hope you guys are all having an amazing Monday, and happy Labor Day to everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about first couple of weeks self-surrendering into federal prison. We're going to be talking about what the facility is going to be like, food and commissary, and the actual surrender process. We're going to be talking mostly today about Lewisburg Federal Prison Camp, as one of our clients has self-surrendered there. So make sure you stay tuned for this video coming up next. All right, guys, we're back. RDAPdan here, Federal Prison Time Consulting. Welcome. What's going on, Sean? Sean Cowgill in the room. Nice to see you, my man. Like I said, today we're going to be talking about federal prison, getting ready to self-surrender amidst COVID-19, what you need to know. We've had one of our clients, Dr. Sultan, who's just surrendered to Lewisburg camp. Not just surrendered, a little over a month ago now. And he's been writing back to us on a regular basis, actually contributing to our blog over on our website, which there's a link in the description of the video if you want to go check out Sean's blogs. He's been sending us pretty consistently about 3 or 4 blogs per week. And we're a little bit behind in getting them touched up and added to the site. But we've got a few of them up there, including his introduction welcoming you to Lewisburg Federal Prison Camp. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We've done a lot of videos on the past about, first couple of days, self-surrendering, what you should expect. But self-surrendering as we're dealing with COVID-19 is a little different than what we're used to dealing with. So we're going to be talking about that today. One of the first things we're going to go over for those of you that might potentially be self-surrendering to, excuse me, to Lewisburg, to the camp, we're going to be talking about some of the things that you should be expecting there. Prior to COVID-19, self-surrendering to prison, most families would start hearing from their loved ones almost immediately. Now, some prisons are running a little bit different than other prisons. Some you might have access to a telephone right away. Some prison camps or low securities, when you go into the quarantine phase, they may have phones in whatever holding area where they have the quarantine going on. And some of them, they do not let you use phones or use anything for the fear of contaminating, cross-contamination on spreading the virus, making sure that it doesn't get spread to the inmates that have already passed through this. So Sean was able to give some good insight on this. And when Sean got there, not only was there a 14-day quarantine, but he also went in there when there was also a lockdown on the prison. So he ended up getting locked down for 21 days. So as you see, things can be a little iffy for your family and friends on the outside as they're waiting to hear from you, very impatiently waiting to hear from you. And when family and friends don't hear from you right away, they just automatically assume the very worst case scenario, that something horrible must be going on. And I apologize if the audio was turned down a little bit low. Hey, Peyton, how are you? Peyton Herrick in the room as well. Hello. So yeah, guys, feel free to join us. This should be a pretty good topic today. I'm going to try to keep it pretty short, 10, 15-minute video tops, just so those of you with the goldfish mentality can watch this later on. Just kidding. I don't watch videos that are very long either, so don't feel bad. So I'll share over here with the screen with what we got going on over here so you can see blog. This is the blog. This is one of the posts that Sean had sent over to us. And this is him welcoming us to Lewisburg, USP, which he's at the camp over there. So, and feel free, if you want the link to the description of this video, I'll post it in 2 places. It's already in the description, and I'll also add it over here into the live stream. So there you go. If you want to head over there and check out Sean's other blogs, just one of the other blogs we have on the site. The facility, he talks about, he kind of gives a play-by-play as he pulled up to the facility. He says it's broken down by 3 different sections. You've got the RDAP section, the medium security, or the camp section, the RDAP section, and the medium security. The medium security prison looks like a Gothic church surrounded by a 15-foot white wall. Prisons aren't meant to be pretty. Some of them do look better than others, but Sean goes into a lot of detail here. There's no fences around the camp. It's got a 6,000 square foot gym with tons of free weights. So he's giving you a lot of the information of what's going on there and what you'd expect. But a lot of the individuals that are going to be going there, some of their big concerns are, when you think about commissary, while I was in prison, you could spend, 150 some odd dollars per week on commissary, which is a pretty decent amount. Where right now, most of the BOP has it limited to about $50 per week, which really cuts down on the type of spending that you can spend. Now, if you were in prison during all of this and you were spending $150 plus a week, and then it transfers over after COVID where you can only spend 50, it's going to be a pretty hard hit. However, if you just get to prison and the most you've never been able to spend more than $50 before because you were never there, spending $50, if that's all you're used to, probably won't be that hard to swallow because you're not going to be accustomed to spending more already. But it is going to be a hard hit for the guys that were spending more initially. Some of the other things that I didn't have to deal with when you self-surrender. End of the day, should drink some coffee. End of the day, self-surrendering now, you got to deal with quarantines, a 14-day quarantine. And as Sean goes into the breakdown of his quarantine, which he talks about the surrender process. So due to COVID-19, the surrender process takes place in the medium security prison. Normally one would just surrender to the camp. I'll show you what I'm looking at here. Surrender to the camp, but due to COVID-19, one has to surrender to the medium security prison where you self-surrender, can only surrender with your ID and legal papers, nothing else. So a lot of people are wanting to bring books and Bibles and everything else with them. Typically you can bring a Bible, you can bring some other real basic stuff, religious cross, but because of COVID-19, some places don't want you surrendering with anything. So if you're going to want books, there's a link. Kurt, Kurt, I'll answer your question in a minute. I think you're referring to commissary. There's in the description of this, there's a link to Amazon. If you're going to want books and you're going to want them to get there before you surrender, so you can have some books to read in solitary confinement, make sure you pre-order your books on Amazon or get them in your cart so a friend or family member can place the orders for you. So you can, pre-check out, you can verify the address, so you can try to get them basically the day you get there, the day after you get there. So you have some reading material. Sean goes into how he didn't have any reading material, and the only thing he was really able to do was write, which he spent hours and hours and hours writing, which is a lot of the stuff that he's sending back to us now in order to share with us on the blog. So you definitely want to make sure that you take your time, you order your books, you get all of that necessarily underway now, so you're not having to figure this out while you're in prison. You can create your wish list on Amazon today, and you can load it up with 150 books or however many books you think you're going to read throughout your prison time. The most you can have in your locker is usually like 8 books at a time. So you don't want to send them all, obviously, but if you have a couple of books come every week, and depending on how fast you read, you can get through these books and really have something to do. You talked about, you'll have no access to a phone or library books. You can, however, ask your family to mail in books. This is absolutely crucial. We talked about that. He says, I'll be giving you more detail essay about my 21-day experience in the SHU, but for now, we just received a blog from him about the SHU, which will be updating today or tomorrow, which will be on the website. So definitely go over there and go over to our website, take a look at the blog site, and look for the blogs by Sean Sultan if you want to get an idea of what it's going to be like self-surrendering to the SHU. Of course, he talks about me. Thank you, Sean, why he was so glad that he hired me. But going into prison right now has never been a crazier time. Some of you are terrified. Some of you have issues going on, whether it's you have sleep apnea problems or you have asthma, you're overweight, you have different issues that could be weakening your immune system. And we've probably been doing an average of 3 to 5 consultations a day on individuals that could potentially be a good fit for some sort of a compassionate release, whether it's through the CARES Act or whether it's the BOP sending you home or the BOP rejecting you and you're going directly in front of a judge. There's many ways to try to get this underway, but if you have these issues and you have, you're obese or you have asthma, or you have, diabetes, you have other issues that may cause you to have a weaker immune system, and you think you might qualify for one of these reasons. And we're starting to see the BOP open up a little bit more. They've just started to reintegrate back to visitations again. I'm sure it's going to be a very watered down visitation service, probably very cut back from what it used to be. Less hours, less, and of course, less inmates at a time are going to be able to go to visitation, where before you could have visits where you're sitting at a table and basically right next to you, there's another family visiting their family, or another inmate visiting their family. And that's not going to be something that they're going to be able to do, almost guaranteed, due to social distancing. So you imagine they're going to try to create that 6 to 8 foot distance between individuals. And knowing the BOP, it will probably be even a wider gap than that. So I wouldn't imagine visitation being wide open. It's going to be very rough. Self-surrendering right now to the BOP. Oh, I do not envy anybody that's getting ready to go through that process. Keith was asking what you could order for $150 on commissary. I mean, a lot. Basically, if you picture the items that are on, you can go online, you can go to the BOP's website and look up commissary lists. Some of the commissary lists are very outdated, meaning, the prices and how long ago these commissary lists were updated to the BOP, but they're still pretty relevant to give you a good idea of the context of what's at the BOP. But pretty much anything you can find, like a 7-Eleven or even a Walmart, so to speak, you can pretty much find something like that on commissary. It's a lot more open than what you would see in like a county jail. County jail, there you got your cup of soup and some Snicker bars and some basic stuff. I mean, you can order everything here from clothing items to snacks to somewhat to healthy food, soda, hygiene products, combs, shampoo, handball gloves, the racquetballs, whatever sports they have, you can order cleats. I mean, it's really just goes into a wide range. And of course, your MP3 players and your book lights. And this is where things get expensive. Your sneakers, when you can only spend $50 on commissary, and a pair of shoes are more than $50, it's really limiting to what you can buy and what you're going to choose to buy. Breaking down, do I need a bunch of food right now, or do I need, clothing? Well, you need a combination of both of those. So trying to balance your money and mitigate some of it for this and mitigate some of it for that, it's a real hard juggling act when you can only spend $50, where some prisons will let you spend, if your monthly limit is like $320 to $350, some prisons you can spend the whole limit in 1 week, but not now until they open up these spending limits. And I imagine the days are also highly lessened. Probably not as many shopping days as there was. They've probably cut down the amount of hours you can shop in a day. So there's probably quite a bit going on. Radios, MP3 players, radios, like Sean just said. Hey, Dan, still trying to get my son out of the shoe. Is there visitation in the shoe? Usually there's no visitation in the shoe. If they're not there if he's just there for like protection purposes or waiting to be transferred, they may do some sort of a visitation process. I don't know if Coleman has opened up their visitation yet at the low, especially with people still dying. I think another staff member just died at the low. So I don't know that Coleman has opened up anything on visitation yet, but we can check on that for you. Things you could typically bring with you. You can bring Bible, you can bring reading glasses. If you have prescription glasses, if you have like a religious cross, if you're religion and you have, a little cross you want to bring, it's usually going to be under $100 value. Wedding ring, you can usually bring in with you, self-surrendering. Again, the wedding ring needs to be under $100 value. So if you have an expensive wedding ring, you're not going to be able to bring that, and you probably wouldn't want to bring that. I would say you want to go to, a Walmart or something and get a generic version of your wedding ring just for the symbolic purposes. Same thing with any of your religious, if you have a religious cross or religious necklace of some sort. Most places will not let you bring in a watch. Some of them will. You definitely are going to want to call the prison you're going to. Some of them will let you bring in sneakers. Some of them won't. Where I was at, Coleman, you could not wear in your own sneakers. Other camps will let you wear in sneakers. They have to be a certain color. They want to maintain some sort of similarity to other stuff. But I can tell you, if you are allowed to bring in anything from the outside, like any type of sneakers or a watch that's not on commissary there in the prison, there will be a higher value on what you have, meaning if you go in there with a watch or a pair of sneakers that you can't get on commissary, and if they're in good condition, other inmates are probably willing to pay a pretty penny for that. Now, you're not allowed to sell your stuff, so I'm not advocating for that, but I can tell you it is commonly done. And especially going in there right now where you have a $50 spending limit. If you're trying to get a good amount of food and you don't want to spend all of your money on a pair of sneakers or something, if you want to wear a pair of sneakers in there that you're allowed, you don't really care about them, you can probably trade those for high dollar value trading for food and hygiene items. So that's something that you can definitely think about. Let's see what else Sean talks about here. Now, the COVID-19 says you have to test. I think it says you have to test produce 2 negative tests. You go through customary strip search. You'll be given your prison ID. Strip search is not as terrifying as you imagine. I imagine it could be pretty terrifying, but the way the strip search part of it works is basically they tell you to take off all of your clothes. I mean, everything down to your birthday suit. And then you're going to be told to, bend over, drop and cough. If you have a lot of hair, you're going to be told to go through your hair, open your mouth, wiggle your gums or wiggle your tongue around, drop, cough, squat, cough, pick up your testicles so they can see under your testicles. Women, it's not going to, they try to make it as uninvasive as possible. And no matter what, it's an invasive process, but it's part of the process to try to lower the risk of smuggling contraband into the prison system. You have to, before you can be released into any type of general public, you have to test negative for COVID. And that's what Sean was saying here. You have to produce 2 negative tests, one when you enter and one when you leave. So I imagine when you leave the prison, you also have to test negative. So if you get there and you have COVID, and you're going to have to wait till you test negative until you're going to be released into general public. But I know like Sean's family was kind of nervous. They didn't hear from him for 3 weeks, no phone calls, nothing for 3 weeks. Like I said, other places, depends where you're going. You definitely want to do your research. And this is one of the benefits of having a prison consultant is Sean's family was able to reach out to us during this time of not hearing from their loved ones, which you can only imagine. If you're watching this right now and your loved one heads off to prison and you don't hear from them for 3 weeks, it's going to be a little hard not to jump to these worst case scenarios. So having somebody to advocate for you on the outside and kind of tell you what to expect and talk you off the ledge, maybe get a privileged phone call made through an attorney group. There's ways to do certain things if it's really, really that necessary. You just gotta prepare as best you can. And we have self-surrender kits. We have self-surrender guides that we can send you guys. Of course, that all changes a little bit with COVID-19 as it's a very evolving pandemic that it seems like every day there's some new BS that goes along with it. But we are seeing some real nasty case managers, especially over at, we're going to do a video specifically on Sheridan. Sheridan might be the worst prison right now with just horrible staff members, horrible wardens, horrible protocols where we have clients there that should be going to a halfway house and the prison just saying that they're not giving them any halfway house. And these are individuals that have some pre-existing conditions in addition. Also some judges that we've seen other people that have been denied in the past for compassionate release, and reading some of these judges' decisions and the reasoning behind it. It's very concerning that they take the views that they take, or that they're even allowed to have these views where they're citing and making statements that are clearly not true and nobody else agrees with them, where other judges have completely done the opposite in the favor many times for the inmate. So we really want to start talking about some of this disjustice that's going on, because not every BOP's facility is going to be run the same. Not all staff are going to have the same perception as to how things should be ruled, but you have to prepare yourself mentally for what you're going into. There's going to be a lot of unknown variables. No matter how much preparing you do, there's going to be things that you did get caught off guard. Having a release plan, having a game plan down. So if you guys go and read Sean's blog over on federalprisontime.com, like I said, there's a link in the description of the video. Head over and start reading some of Sean's blogs because they're very recent. He's posting on a regular basis from prison. And even though it may not be the same prison some of you are going to, there's going to be a lot of similarities of what you should be expecting. And the reason why we've really chosen Sean to be a blogger for us is his mindset and positive attitude dealing with this. He finally just sent over his first, we'll call it the rainy day blog. And even his rainy day blog was still pretty educational as to what you can be doing, but not every day is going to be a great day. So the fact that Sean is doing his best to maintain a positive mindset, we want to showcase the information that he's sharing, because so many of you are going to go through the exact same process, and seeing somebody else's mistakes or what they tripped over, it might be something you can avoid so you don't make the same mistakes. He did just get into RDAP, and we're going to be posting it. There's a blog coming about that, which we'll also share on the YouTube channel. And many facilities, RDAP still hasn't opened yet. Many facilities, RDAP may never open again. Other facilities may be opening RDAP. So there's a lot coming down the pipe regarding RDAP, some good, some bad. The amount of time you're sentenced to. Many of you are freaking out about going in right now, not just because of COVID, but because of the lack of programming. And you're very concerned about the First Step Act and how this is going to affect your ability to do the First Step Act. If so many facilities don't have programs running, that's a very, very realistic fear you should have. But also realistically, First Step Act sounds way better on paper than it actually is. One of the best things that First Step Act did for us is those of you that are attempting compassionate release through the prison, First Step Act has allowed it that once you exhaust your BOP remedy requesting compassionate release, which basically you have to ask through the BOP first, if the BOP denies you or doesn't respond after 30 days, First Step Act now allows you to go back to your sentencing court, back to the judge that sentenced you, where prior to the First Step Act, that was it. If the BOP said no, you're dead in the water. You didn't have the ability to go back in front of a sentencing judge. So that's probably one of the best things that we've seen from the First Step Act. First Step Act sounds really good on paper. You know, you get the 15 days for every 30 days of programming for minimal risk, first time, nonviolent offender types of individuals. So many of you are counting your time going, well, that's great. For every 30 days, I'm going to get 15 days towards halfway house or home confinement. And it doesn't quite work that way. It technically works that way, but when you do the math, nowhere near that. Not even, I would even say you're going to get 5 days for 30 days. What's going on, Heather? Welcome, welcome. Who else we got in here? We got Heather, Jamie. If you truly deserve compassionate release, doesn't matter if you have only been in prison for 2 months or 20 months. No, it doesn't matter, because so if you so before, Jamie, compassionate release, in order to, like, through the CARES Act, one of the other things that the CARES Act implemented is due to the state of national emergency because of COVID-19. The most an individual could have done on home confinement prior to all this of their sentence is 10%. So if you have a 60-month sentence or 24-month sentence, the most you can do is 10% of the actual sentence on home confinement. But because of the CARES Act and COVID-19 and the level of distress it put everybody in for safety purposes, they've extended that to where you can do all of your time on home confinement. So whether you've got, 1 day in prison, no days in prison, or, you've served 50% of your time, technically you could be sent home to do the rest of your time on home confinement, whether it be through the prison or through a judge that grants you compassionate release. So yes, you could go home, Jamie, to answer your question directly. Ruth Spears has a question. Dan, have you seen the new book that just came out, Burden of Proof? They can get it on Amazon. It's cases out of Fort Worth federal court. It's great. I have not seen it, but that's great information for somebody that's looking for a book to bring into the prison system. So guys, check that out. I guess it's called A Burden of Proof. Guys, go take a look at it on Amazon. I understood you had to be an inmate. Sorry, I was trying to. No, technically, nowhere in there does it say that. I would say you at the very least have to be designated. Nowhere in any of the laws that say you actually had to have served any time. It just says it needs to go to the warden. So if you've been designated, you have a prison to go to. Many of our clients have been designated. They haven't surrendered yet. So again, it's brand new territory, still waiting on a lot of rulings to come down. But technically, you can attempt this before you even self-surrender. If you know where you're going, it can be sent off to the warden. And chances are the warden's either either going to deny it or not respond at all, at which point you can try to go back in front of a judge, and all of this can take place before going in. And don't get me wrong, if you've served a chunk of your time, it's probably going to be a lot more likely to happen than it would be if you haven't served any time. But there's nowhere that says that you have to be an inmate in order to do that. So this was just a quick video for those of you that are getting ready to self-surrender in the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks. I would imagine over the next couple of months, we should probably see the fizzling out of COVID-19. Going into this month, September, we've seen a lot of places reopen, going into, phase 3s and phase 4s. Florida finally hit phase 2, but it's almost like the part of it doesn't make sense to me is they're doing things based on dates, not based on the actual numbers. You know what I mean? So I would imagine very, very close as we get to this election being over, that will, if this was not an election year, I don't even think COVID would be an issue. That's my opinion. You can take it, love it, hate it, argue with me, agree with me. I really don't care. But if this was not an election year, I don't think we'd be dealing with COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 is destroyed the economy, but it has sent a lot of individuals home. If you have a loved one that's come home from COVID-19, I had a guy that I was friends with in prison who still had 7 years left, just recently still had 7 years left, who just went home due to COVID-19, due to the CARES Act. He's at home. He sent me a text message last week. I thought this guy had a cell phone. He was still in prison when he sent me a text, but no, he's at home on home confinement for the next 7 years. So I don't know how that's going to work. To put somebody in home confinement for years, I know all of you right now are going, oh, that sounds like a blessing. But if you've done home confinement's pretty treacherous. And to be on it for that length of a time, I just don't know if that's even possible. I don't know how somebody wouldn't absolutely go crazy unless they really kind of tear you through that. The further you get, the more leeway they give you. But I don't know how that's going to play out yet either. Do you have any idea of when visitations or transfer will start at Coleman? I do not. Coleman is a hot spot. Coleman to me is, if you have anybody at Coleman, you should be doing everything within your power to get. Coleman probably has the best. If you have a loved one at Coleman that is at risk of any of the comorbidities, whether it's overweight or obesity or anything that might qualify them to be at risk for getting COVID or at risk of dying from COVID, and they're at Coleman, you should be trying to get them to go home from Coleman. I would be putting in a request to the warden. I'd be getting my motions prepared or hiring somebody like Tom Root to get motions prepared to get it approved. Because once they get transferred to a different prison, if they get transferred to a prison that really has, no outbreaks, they've been very minimal, you probably see a judge deny that. So increasing your chances of sending a loved one home. If you have a loved one at Coleman, take advantage now, because once they get transferred, it's probably not going to be as likely that you would get them approved for anything. But transfers, I don't know when they're going to start transferring, and it's not really something they disclose. They just kind of start doing it, and the transfer list just starts back up. Can you explain how home confinement works and what restrictions are? Home confinement is basically exactly what it sounds like. You're on an ankle monitor. You're confined to your home or to whatever residence was listed, whether it's a friend's house, your house, parents' house. The only thing you're really allowed to do is go to work, maybe go on some hygiene shopping trips, church. All of this has to be approved ahead of time. Your job schedule, you're probably gonna have to send in a job schedule each week saying, these are the hours that I'm working. This is how long it takes me to get to work. It's not like you're going to be allowed to leave the house at 9 a.m. and you got to be home by 6. It's not going to be it's going to be play-by-play restriction. Like, you are restricted. You want to go get a haircut, you got to get it approved. You want to go out to dinner with your family, not happening. You want to go to your kid's little league game, not happening. Now, I'm not going to say some of these rules may not bend or change based on who's monitoring you, but I can tell you from what I've seen from home confinement and my own experience on home confinement, you're still serving your time in the BOP. You're still giving time back. It's still part of your sentence. You're not free yet. So you are going to be imprisoned in your home. It's pretty serious. It's pretty gruesome. It's pretty tedious. I think more so than what most people understand. I think most people assume home confinement is going to be a timetable where you're going to be a lot of this amount of time, like you can leave at 6, be home by 6 type of deal. And I wish it was like that, because that would be, how easy would that be? There's no going to the bars. There's nothing recreational. You're not really allowed to go have fun. You might get, like, if somebody passes away in a family or somebody's getting married, you might be able to get approval like that. Your wife's giving birth, you might be able to get an approval for something like that. But 99% of the average day things you're going to be denied for, unless there's a major reason why you need to be there. Visitation starts 9/3 for 1 hour. You have to wear a mask, gloves, behind plat. This is all information on the, was that for Coleman, Ruth? Because I didn't read the updates. And that's why we love doing this channel. Community is method. You have some of the viewers popping up with information. But yeah, there's gonna be a lot of restrictions on visitation. And I imagine, if any of you have waited in line for a visitation, when you get there, it can be a tedious process. I imagine it's going to be that. Just imagine even going to a grocery store right now. Some of them have lines where they're letting people in. They've got the little number counter, letting people out, wiping down grocery carts. The format for this is going to be, and we already know a lot of these correctional officers, I'm not going to say all of them, because we know some good ones. We've all seen Anthony Ganji's channel over at Tier Talk. He's one of the good guys, but they're not all good guys. Just like not all inmates are bad guys or good guys, right? But we do know some of these correctional officers are definitely going to abuse their privilege and power, and they are going to turn people away. They're going to make you wait. You're going to get, people that drive hours and hours and hours, they're going to get there and say, "Oh, sorry, we're not taking any more individuals." Definitely, whatever it says online, pick up the phone and call that prison before you try to show up to a visitation. Make sure that the dress code, don't just go off of the dress code that they have online, maybe an updated dress code due to COVID-19. Make sure you know exactly what you're walking into before you step foot into it. Ruth Spears just gave so October 3rd, not September 3rd. So October 3rd. Okay, that makes more sense, because I didn't think it was September, but I hadn't looked myself, so I wasn't going to go say Ruth was wrong, but she corrected herself. So October 3rd is when, in only 1 hour. Holy shit. Are you kidding me? Ruth is saying it's only going to be 1 hour visitation. So you drive, some of you are driving a full day or hopping on a plane to go see your loved one. And visitations before, some of you are like, "Oh, an hour doesn't sound bad." Well, you used to be able to go visit your loved one for damn near the whole day. You'd get there at like 8 or 9 in the morning, and you could stay till about 3 in the afternoon. 1 hour after driving, I wouldn't go to see my loved one. I'm not going to lie. I'd be like, "Hey, I'll call you extra on the phone. I'll send you some extra stamps, put some extra money in your books, but I'm not driving 8 hours to see you for an hour." Maybe once every few months. Definitely not every weekend, like what people have been doing. So this is going to be interesting. Nothing is going to go back to normal. Nothing, not in the real world and not in the prison world, guys. Like this country is forever changed, probably for the worse. And again, if it wasn't an election year, I don't think COVID would have did what it did to us. I don't think we'd be up in arms like this. So just prepare the best you can, guys. Do your homework. There's nothing worse from both sides of it. There's nothing worse than you driving to go see your loved one to find out you can't get in for whatever reason. And there's nothing worse than an inmate who's looking forward to their visit. They got their, freshly pressed prison uniform, all ironed, ready to go. They just left the barbershop with a fresh new haircut. They polished their brand new boots and looking spiffy, dressed to the T, just to get there and find out we sent them away, and without really giving a reason. You want to see somebody lose their shit and come back to the unit angry and bitter, and in some cases looking like they're going to get into a fight with somebody because they're so pissed off. Maybe they were seeing their child for the first time in a long time. They're seeing their wife, their sick mother. Some of you are traveling with elderly people that don't get out too often. So this is gonna, it's gonna be a very, very trying process for everybody involved. So you really have to take it slow and have minimal expectations of how this process is going to unroll, or else you're going to set yourself up for complete doom and gloom, guys. So yeah, 5 hours away to only visit for 1 hour. I mean, I get it, but that's kind of rough. And who knows if it's a full 1 hour by the time you actually get in there and get processed, and are there going to be any issues? You know, you can also count on this. This is going to happen. Guarantee this will happen. Somebody's going to get denied. Somebody's going to throw a fit and cause a scene and ruin it for everybody, whether it's a loved one throwing the scene or whether it's the inmate causing the scene. And then visitation is shut down. And then all of you individuals that have driven 5 hours, 12 hours, 36 hours away to get there and told no visit. See you next week. You know, you really have to prepare for this. I haven't seen mine in 14 years and I'm not going 1,000 miles for 1 hour. I mean, I don't blame you. Anybody that says you don't love that person because you're not going to drive 1,000 miles, that's a hefty amount of time for that hour that will go by lickety split, guys. Lickety split, word of the day. Well, anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Getting ready to self-surrender in the next couple weeks. This is a video that you definitely want to see. Don't forget to come over to the website. Like I said, we got the blog on there. All you got to do is at the top, you see, the screen's so big, it distorted. At the top of the screen, we have our blog up there. We've also got some awesome testimonials. If you are a family members interested in hiring RDAP and their team of super awesome professionals. But the blog, you can come check out our blog, and we've got everything from Lewisburg. You can see all these top ones are all from Sean. He's got his daily routine. That's a blog that just went up on September 6th. That was when? That was yesterday. We got one of Sean's blogs uploaded yesterday, Lewisburg Federal Prison Camp, daily routine. Sean talks about what goes on in the day-to-day. So feel free. All of the blogs also have the ability to leave a comment on the bottom. So if you read the blog or if you have once you get done reading the blog, if you have some questions for Sean, post your questions in the comments on the blog itself, not here, but on the blog, and I'll make sure to forward those comments to Sean. I am getting Sean's approval to share his information with all of you guys. It's public information on the BOP, but if Sean lets me, I will, just post his contact information on one of the upcoming videos, or I'll leave it on his blog so you guys can, if you want to email and mail directly with Sean just to show him some support. But he's doing really well. He's keeping a really strong mental thought process through this. His family, I called to check in on most of our clients' families once the client goes into prison. I called and checked in on his loved ones about 2 weeks after he went in, probably about 4 weeks, because they'd already spoken to him at that point. And they were very grateful for the phone call, but they were also very, very positive mindset movement as well. They were really going in the right direction of they're going to get through this. And it's great to see that. And a lot of that comes from you guys getting ready to go into prison, really giving your loved one the right expectation and letting them know that you're going to get through this every step of the way. I think I got one more question down here. Let me see what we got. Does it make sense to ask for an extension, and how compassionate release at the same time due to wife? Yes, but I would say it depends on how it's going to be broken down and worded, Jamie. You definitely don't want the judge to think you're just buying time, but if you do have some legitimate reasons, it could make sense, yes. But I don't want to say yes or no without knowing the exact details. And in a situation of us assisting with something like that, I would definitely want Tom to do an interview with you first to make sure that whatever line of thinking you have is going in the right direction. All right, guys, that's all I got. RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting, people helping people, communities method. Hope you guys all have a great day, and I will see you guys probably on Wednesday. So peace out, guys.